hermeneutics interprets film as visual literature. In the importance of the study of Alfonso Cuarón, he's going to tell us the story of Cleo in this film. With the domestic worker who experiences the death of her child, Cleo helps take care of the children of Antonio and Sofia. The story unfolds as Cleo becomes pregnant with the child of a cousin of a friend. When she tells him of her upcoming pregnancy, he threatens to kill her and the baby. Yet the baby is stillborn. Cleo goes on a vacation to the beach and experiences healing when she saves 2 of the children from drowning in the ocean. Cleo is a character that embodies the life of a servant who does not have any rights in society, but who has found a caring employer during the 1970s in Mexico. The audience feels an empathy for Cleo, who is mute after the loss of her child. Cuarón directs a passionate case in the heart-wrenching film, which we interpret as a social discourse. Cleo sees and uses water to clean as a metaphor for the place and space that she portrays in the film. She has not experienced human rights in the relationship with her father's child. Article 3 to the Declaration of Human Rights follows: everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of person. Thematic juxtaposition of political turmoil and autobiographical reminiscences of the director are significant. Alfonso Cuarón is a master filmmaker and has brought change to cinema. As illuminating, he is an agent of cultural change. To argue, I implement hermeneutic arcs. The human tragedy, the stillborn baby, the actual scenes of violence, the plot and characterization are painful to watch at times. The intersectionality of hermeneutic semiotics as well as cultural poetics also reveals cultural heritage. The takeaway initiates self-monitoring as metacognitive or meta-reflection. Hermeneutics specifically applies to the interpretation and refers to the analysis of film. Narrative hermeneutics is going to take us to a very special place. He is a social critic and a supporter of human rights. This presentation argues the success of the film Roma. The film is iconic. The portrayal of the universe out of balance uses images of fire, water, air, and earth within specific narrative scenes. Each scene is a masterpiece of cinematography. Thematic juxtaposition of political turmoil and autobiographical reminiscences of the director are significant. Human tragedy reveals scenes of violence. Plot and characterization are painful to watch at times. There is a lack of human rights. The movie is written entirely as a combination of Spanish and Mixteco and plays automatically on Netflix with Spanish subtitles. The director, Alfonso Cuarón, won an Academy Award for Best Director and one for Best Cinematography. The film Roma won an Academy Award for the Best International Film in 2019. The portrayal of Mexico City in the 1970s signifies that the historical study ignites a symbolic representation of the director's vision. The main character, Cleo, played by Ylita Aparicio, who was nominated for Best Actress, is the signifier of suffering that took place in the 1970s and 71 in Mexico City. She is symbolic representation of the early life of the director. Through specific cinematography techniques such as camera angle, black and white aesthetic, autobiographical reminiscences, and somatic narrative, Cuarón designs a masterpiece. Roma represents his childhood. The director, Alfonso, is also portraying the injustice and suffering of this main character in verbal and nonverbal communications. The viewers are studying an archetypical cultural milieu of Mexico in the 1970s. So by addressing the social functionality of literature as well as the theoretical processes of film, we see that there is a signifier of humanity, the study of semiotics. I interpret the aesthetic of the film Roma through hermeneutics and semiotics to argue that the cultural poetics of the director are based on the darkness or the lack of human rights as opposed to the lightness or hopefulness that the dignity of life may offer. As a tragic figure, in the beginning of the movie, we find Cleo cleaning the foyer of the home where she is a domestic servant, and the repetitive nature of water reveals the symbolism of life and death in this tragic time in Mexico City. The plot and character organizations and fundamental structures juxtapose against the backdrop of political turmoil and death. The dialogue alludes to death as well. A simple young woman, Cleo, with hopes and dreams, is lost because her boyfriend destroys her life by threatening her. The tragic flaw, hubris, is symbolic within the consciousness of Cleo and is crucial to understanding 21st century pathos, logos, and ethos. Certainly, the magic of the film in the context of Rome is important to the aesthetics of culture, so we interpret this through self-understanding. Our own cultural heritage helps us to understand this film. The phenomenon of film writing is important because film is a sign or a signifier of cultural poetics of the past that may indicate a vision of the future. Obviously, the film is based upon the sign of darkness and the tragedy of human life. So the screenplay, the historical significance of the screenplay shows that the film Roma takes positions on cultural issues. As such, we as interpreters and hermeneutic scholars ascertain cultural landscape in the film through interpretation and signs. The most important outcome of hermeneutics is cultural poetics. Semiotics, the general study of signs, traces its lineage to Saussure. Kohler remarks that semiotics is an international movement and is going to identify literary works in a specific methodology. The scientific study of behavior and communication, which is clearly embodied in Alfonso's creation of Roma, mirrors the points in semiotics, and we fully accept this. The cultural poetics that we are moving toward due to the semiotics is a phenomenon that we are going to see. Investigating the useful functionality of literature as well as theoretical processes of the literary scholar regards the power of film for cultural change. Considering the impact that researchers make on their readers, we can change the researcher with hermeneutics, semiotics, and cultural poetics. Objectives are to achieve a cultural interest in the methods we use to reflect, construct, and mediate experiences in the world. Historical study, cultural poetics involves a process of interpreting memory of the director, interpretations of his past in Mexico City, and interpretations of his imagination of the craft of film. So I apply cultural poetics, a form of literary analysis, to discover the original ideology behind significant historical and biographical facts about writers, resources, and the art that they create. Roma is based on reminiscence of the director and is also a sign. The film is inspired by Alfonso's own life. This semi-autobiographical, passionate portrait is set in the midst of political turmoil in Mexico City surrounding the Corpus Christi massacre that occurs 1 hour and 33 minutes into the film. The framework of hubris or tragic flaw fuses our concentration on signs and interpretations and helps us focus on the creative process to offer transformation. So the framework of film fuses our concentrations, and the director engages memories of readings of life experiences and imaginations. Roma tells the story of Cleo. Again, she significantly experienced losses. Through poetic vision of the domestic worker, Antonio suddenly runs away with his mistress, and at the end there is healing because Cleo is going to be at the beach and save some of the children from drowning in the family. So paramount to the study of civic values is the development of self-efficacy. The conclusion ignites self-monitoring and metacognitive thinking. We become visions in the film. We are accepted into this world. Writing is a human right. Archives are primary sources, and letters and excerpts and evidence survive to share moments of humanity. Journalists can share inner life as well. And cultural poetic studies are social functions and turn film into this visual literary field. So I finally embrace this filmmaker as a messenger of hope. His writing is prophetic, motivational, and my qualitative research project for the purpose of creating a peaceful mindfulness in readers will ignite healing. This luminary Quran is a creator of myth based on cultural change and brings us to a path for healing. In my past studies, I have worked to study the works of literary giants such as Toni Morrison and Emily Dickinson, and a reviewer has mentioned that in my collection of essays I feature these works, and I talk about the efficacy of literature to heal wounds. References. Thank you very much, and I am very honored to present. This is Mary Ann D'Eduardo.